We were talking about um, business objects first of all. So let's go into a business object. I hope you know how to get to a business object,
Yes.
right? So we will type in BO, we'll put colon, and then we'll put the name of the business object. Let's say reports. Okay. So everything in Workday is a business object, guys. So whether you talk about reports, whether you talk about, you know, class, report column, report configuration, right? So everything is a business object. So if you just look into any related thing with this, with report name, you'll get all the business objects. So we can start with report group. So report group is something which you generally use for your connections as well, and then for your security as well. And every business object will have at least 4 things at the top. So let it load and I'll just try to show you. Yeah, there is one thing which is missing, which is report, right? So these 3 things will be there for sure, which is fields, related business objects, and data sources. Okay. Now, we all know that when we talk about any report, it is a table. First of all, any business object is a table which is there in the database. And when we have any table, it follows the same concept of database which is there in the general system. The only thing is we would not know what keys are there and how exactly it is connected, because that part of Workday has not been exposed by anybody. So that's the reason we say that we don't have any key in Workday. Okay, that's the most important part that we have to understand. Now, if we don't have any key, or if we don't have any relationship, then how do we connect to different objects, right? That would be something that would come in your mind. So for that purpose, Workday has itself given related business objects. Now, when you see this particular field, all these fields are basically kind of a column. Okay, it's a kind of a column that we have on a table, right? So if you see this, there are 26 fields, and each field, when you see, it says either Workday delivered or, calculated or custom, right? So you have the field name, description, field source. Now from where this field is coming, that is what is being shown here. So we have Workday delivered, and then you have the field type as the data type that you have with the column name. So if you scroll down, you will see this particular business object is only governed by Workday. Governed by Workday means we cannot have anything customized here, because this is not on the reporting side. Because if it was, something that we could have created a report, then there would be a tab where you would see reports. What I meant was, I'll show you. Let's say we are going on to a business object called worker, right? So worker is the most fundamental tables, or you can say the business object which Workday has. So all your reports, generally that you create, some or the other place, you will have worker available, because without worker, Workday is nothing. So let it load and then I can explain it to you in a better way. So the number of fields here will be very high. So if you see this, there are more than 4,000 fields that you have here, right? And then you have the field source and the field type, correct? In the field source, you see calculated. Calculated basically means it's a custom field. It has been created by any of us, maybe any users that is being used. And then you have Workday delivered. And in this business object, when I compare, when you look into this, there is no custom field or any calculated field as well. So it completely indicates that there has been no customization, or we cannot customize it, because it's a very standard business object which is used by Workday, which is report group. Then, as I stated, that it follows the same concept of a local database that you have on your system or on cloud, which means there will be connectivity from one table to the another. So if there is a connectivity, there must be something which is in common, right? Without that, there could be no connectivity. Now, the fields which are common, we have to understand that those play a major role in connectivity. So if you look into this particular section, it says links to, and then you have links from, correct? And you look into this security group. If you look into this and you click on this number of links, right? So these are the fields, security groups needed, and it is actually belonging to secured all, that is a business object. But this is also being used by security group. Now, what I'm looking right now is a security group business object, and they are using the field of secured. And that is also a part of my report group business object. So you can understand there is a relationship which is there in the backend, but it has not been exposed. Let me show it to you in this way. It will be more easy to understand. So here you see, when you scroll it down, there are 4 fields, right? I'll not go into 27, that's too many. But if you look into this one, which has 4 fields, and these fields, academic appointment title, academic appointment with sabbatical program, right? So all these things are related business object, and we have academic appointment, that is a related business object, but worker here becomes my primary business object. So these fields belong to whatever business object you see, that is your primary business object. And when there is a relationship with other business object through a field, then only it is considered to be a related business object. So how that linking is done, that is not exposed by Workday. Okay. So this is the important part that we have, and we need to understand about links to, and there is one more which is links from. But let me first know, did you understand the links to part? Do you have any confusion here?
I'm good on links too. Yep.
Okay. Anybody, guys? Because I see there are, I don't know how many people are there. Okay. Priyanka, Sarav, Rajdeep, Mayur. All of you are clear, right?
Yes.
Great. Then that's wonderful. Then we will try to understand links from. So guys, when you have business objects and their field is being used by another business object, correct? In those cases, the relationship is there and they become the related business object. So in this section, we saw worker was there, right? And worker was using a field of a related business object. Because field of worker was used by other business object, the other business object became the related business object. So in this section, when you see, it is exactly just the opposite of it. So in this section, you will have worker, which will be using the field of other business objects. So for this, we have 2 links, right? Let's look into it. So there are 2 fields, issued to and requester. And in this section, what you see is worker is the related business object. And these field belongs to abstract business asset and asset share. So these 2, I mean, this business object, actually it is one business object only, but one business object has 2 fields which is being used by worker. So worker here became my related business object, and abstract business asset and asset share became my primary business object. So in this section, it is exactly the opposite of links to. Okay, did you get it? Yes, no?
Yes.
So whenever you are building a report, we all know that we don't need a business object there, right? Whenever you have to build a report, what do you need?
Data source.
Data source, correct?
Yep.
Now, when you have a data source, it will automatically pick the business objects from where it has to extract the value. It will not tell you that this, which is the primary business object. Now, that is what we have to remember. Once we know which exact data source we have to use, the primary business object is automatically decided by that data source. Okay. And accordingly, you can get into that business object, find what are the related business objects I have, which I'm able to see, and what are the fields that are there. If I have to build a report where I need to use certain business objects and I need to find out that, okay, what is the relationship? How exactly am I going to make it work? Then in this section, you have to use the concept of links to and links from. That will help you to develop any advanced report that you want to. Because in advanced report only, you are able to use multiple business objects. In simple report, you would not. You will have only one business object which you will be using. Whether it is an advanced report, matrix, or anything, all those business reports are dependent on this concept. If you understand the relationship properly, then you will never face any challenge. In order to understand the relationship, you need to know which data source you're picking, and it will tell you the primary business object. And from there, you can get into the, the tab of that particular business object, which will give you the related business objects. And hence it will solve your problem of building any advanced report. Does that make sense?
Ashish, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for example, I am using a data source worker for HCM reporting. My primary business object would be worker. And I am creating an all actives report.
All actives.
So
all
yeah,
active. All active worker. Okay.
Yeah, all active worker. So when I try to use related business or link to related business object, definitely the fields which are available in link to, we are able to use that. But some fields are available from link from related business object, and we are not directly able to use these business. For example, absence input, I am not able to directly use that field in worker when I'm using the worker business object. Correct. Is there an easy way, or calculated field is the only option which we have?
Yes, calculated field is one option, or another option is, why don't you choose a data source in which you have that field? If you want to build such report where you want to use that particular business object, then use the data source of that business object, right? It will give you what you need.
Things happens that we keep a worker as our primary source business object, because that has lot of information, and we get majority of our fields connected to worker business object. Correct. Then we have to fetch the data from the link from business object. At that time, we have challenges, and if we use the data source of link from business object, we are not able to use the worker fields completely. No, it will not work. Actually, that is the challenge. For that purpose only, Workday has given you calculated fields. So LRV is the only option which we lookup related value, or maybe anything which you are trying to search, you will get it from LRV. Basically, any lookup function that you want to use. Okay. Yep. All right. Any other questions on this section before I get into the other parts? Anybody? I mean, I just wanted to check. So all of you are working on reports, or, I mean, is there anybody who is working on configuration also from this team? We all are working. Basically, we all have a report writer access. We are working on report. Major our work is on reports. Configurations, I would say, not as in configurations, but security. And sometimes we have to use ISU reports, but it's very at the minimum. Okay, so in that case, if you are doing configuration and you said that you work on security, so what are the things that you work on security? Like, how exactly do you do your day-to-day activity? See, when it comes to security, we give accesses to the reports. The security groups are already created by already created by other team, and we give accesses to the reports. Yep.
So you give the access. So do you give the
Yes.
access through domain security policy, or do you give the access through business process security policy? How do you do that? I mean, you
We
know that.
only we only share the report. We don't give access through domain security policy, but it would be good if we get a hint of it, what exactly it works, because we get a lot of requests to have the access to the report, and then we have to reach out to our teams. So it would be very easy for us to let them know what exactly we are asking, what the requester is asking when it comes to security policies.
Okay, okay.
Are they needing domain access, or they only want the report to be shared? Only report definitions need to be shared.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. Right. So you don't have any, basically insight into how the security of Workday works. That is where you don't work on that. That's what I
No.
could understand.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then we will go from there, because what will happen if I start from somewhere else, it will cause confusion. Okay. So anything related to reports in this section, just before I move on to the security, before I go there? Anybody? Any questions on field source, field type, related business object, data sources, reports, anything you feel that you have a confusion? Because this topic was not covered by me. Just wanted to check on that so that I can take any of your questions before I move ahead into the security. Okay, so I don't have any questions from you. I'll consider that this is clear. Now, moving on to the security, guys. So I'll take you through my notepad. The reason is there are a few things before we actually get into the actual sub configuration. Let's review that particular part first. Otherwise, you will have some confusion, which would be difficult to clear later. Let me find my notepad. Actually, I'm not able to see that. Okay.
Ashish, to add some, when we give accesses to our dashboards, at that time, we need to understand what domain security policies are there and how those accesses work.
Yeah, that's the reason I wanted to start it from the beginning, so that you will have a complete picture of the security of Workday. And that's something very complex also. Why I say complex? Because it's not straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, let me know once you're able to see my notepad, guys.
Yes.
All right, let's quickly then go to security. Give me a minute. Oh, it's too long. Yeah, I have it now. Right. So guys, when we talk about security, security has multifold, you can say, control on Workday. Now I say multifold control means that it has to be controlled through different options that we have. And as a tool, Workday takes care of the external security. External security, we are not worried about. And it boasts about its security because this is a tool which has never been compromised up till now, even if there has been no data breaches or data leaks. So that's the reason it is considered to be one of the most secure HCM tool which is there in the market right now. Now, when we talk about the security, it is basically two types. One is your data and another is your action. So when you say data, it is about the field access. If you don't have the field access, even if you try to create a report and report is shared with you, the data will not come. You might start getting an error, or that column would come as blank for you. Why? Because you don't have access on that field. There could be a possibility. And Those excesses, if I talk about excess, it is controlled through a policy which is called as domain security policy. And it works on the data side of Workday. So there are certain fields which, in your day-to-day activity also, even if you are using any HCM system, you would know that your compensation field, right? Your compensation field is such a field that you cannot go ahead and edit it. You can only view that. But how that, I'm sorry, but how that is controlled, that is what we are going to look into. And suppose you have put certain fields in the report, right? As a creator, you may have access. You are able to see the values of it. But let's say you share it with somebody who is not part of your security group. You may share it with HR manager and they don't have those accesses which you have. So there you will face challenges, not you, but basically the person who is reading the report, who is viewing the report. They may get the data, they may not get the data. And depending on that, you may get a lot of tickets that I'm not able to see what you have built, or I am not getting the data. It does not run for me, right? So all those kind of issues will come. And for those purposes, we need to make sure that the right security permissions are allotted on that security group through domain security policy. And that security policy is very, very important. So when we have a data security, it talks all about fields. And a collection of field is basically a domain, and domain is based on the functional area. Understand the relationship, okay? So we give the permissions on fields. Fields are part of your domain because when you have a collection of fields, that become a domain, and domain is divided as per your functional area. So do you have idea about functional area? What is a functional area? Yes, no?
If you can give us some examples so that, specifically what functional area we are talking about.
Let's say in HCM, if you talk about HCM only, you have functional area like personal data. You have functional area like compensation data. You have a functional area like leave and absence data, something like that.
I would say we are able to see the records of the employee since we have been the report writers, and we generate reports on employee records. So on front end, we have the employee, we are able to see the employee records, including their overall job history and the compensation data as well. So definitely we are able to see the personal data, then compensation data, leaves data, time off data.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It indicates that there is a connection that you already have access, which means your security group would have got the permissions of those functional area. Yeah. So that is true. Because of that only you are able to view. But I am trying to make you understand that how do you control that view? How do you actually give those permissions? That is what we are going to look into this. Okay. So first of all, we have to understand few basic concepts when you talk about security. So in security, as I stated, there are two parts, data and data security and action security. Data security is controlled by a policy which is called as domain security policy. And actions basically means any activity that you perform. See, you are able to create reports, which means you have the option, you have the business process permission. Your security group to which you belong has the permission to go into the report writer and build it. Otherwise, you were not able to do it. Now, how that permission is given to a security group through business process, that is what we are going to see. Okay. So we also have to understand one more thing, that the security actually follows a top to bottom approach. It is basically a hierarchical in nature. So someone who is at the top level, maybe your manager or your manager's manager, whatever permissions they have, you may not have that. They are able to see a lot more data than what you are able to see. That is where I'm talking about in production. Now, the same thing is not there in sandboxes or your test environment or your training environment. They may not even have access to those things, but you may have, right? But I'm talking about the real-time scenario where you have the production, right? So it is always hierarchical in nature. It follows top to bottom approach. And then when we talk about the different functional area, what kind of permissions we have in Workday? There are only two kinds of permissions that you have. One is view and another is modify. There is no third permission that you have in Workday, guys, when I'm talking about data security. Okay, view and modify. There is nothing beyond that. And those permissions are given through security groups. And in Workday, there is, in any other tool or any other HCM system, you may have observed that the permissions are basically given to a user directly on their profile. Have you worked on any other HCM tool or any other applications? Yes, no?
Yes, we have worked previously on OBI of Oracle.
Okay, OBI. So if you have to give the permission, where do you give it in OBI?
We were giving on report level only. So we have certain user groups. So based on that, we used to give the permissions, and apart from that, individual level. But individual level was at the minimum, and user groups were more.
Yeah. So in Workday, how it happens is everything is dependent upon your security groups only. You cannot give permission to individual users who does not have access to those particular data. Okay. Even if you give the permission, let's say you have built a report and you have given the permission to anybody in your team. I'm just checking the name. Sorry, I forget it. Yeah, let's say we have Rajdeep, right? So I see someone dropped. Saurabh, he dropped.
Saurabh Mishra dropped. Yep.
So is he not from part of the team?
He is. Not sure why he dropped. We'll check.
Okay, I mean, I do not have time to repeat it. That's the reason I am.
No problem. You can proceed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what happens here is, just understand that the permissions. If I have created a report and I give the permissions to Saurabh. Okay. And if Saurabh does not have access to that particular functional area, which is a part of a business object, then even if he has the access, he will not be able to do anything with the report. Are you getting the point now? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, suppose you created a report on worker, okay? And there are certain fields which you have of worker, right? Now, those fields, if you don't have access, okay, to the person whom you are giving the report access, when they run the report, they will be able to run, but the data will not be in front of them. Are you getting what I'm trying to say now?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is done in Workday through security groups. So guys, always remember, we give the permission to security groups, and based on your security group, a role is created. Okay. And you assign that role to an employee. And based on the role of the employee, whatever permissions are being given onto that security group, the user inherits it indirectly. Okay. So suppose I join as an employee and I'm working as a sales consultant, okay, in any organization. For me, if I have to see any report, I would rather try to see the reports like my salary report, or maybe how many leave balances I have. All those reports I'm going to see. But suppose if I don't have access to those fields, even if the report is shared with me, what will I get? I'll not get anything. And as a sales user, I will not be able to make any changes in the Workday system, right? I'll only use it for my day-to-day activity, just like to submit the timesheet or see the leaves and how many leaves have been approved, how many leaves I have got. All those reports only I'll be able to see. If I have been asked to create a report, I may not be able to do that, right? Because my role does not allow me to do that. And that's the reason, as per the role, you have the security group, which is called as role-based security group. So everybody in the organization generally has this particular security group assigned to them, okay, through their role, and the security is controlled through their role only. There is no other way. Okay, are you getting the point now, what I'm trying to say?
Yes, Ashish. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the next part is a user-based security group. Now, this is a security group which is not given to everybody. A user-based security group is more like a security administrator of a tenant. So when you give a user base, or when you create a security group for user-based security group, in those cases, the permissions are basically all admin permissions. You can do anything what you want to do. And these two security groups work on a different level. Now, different level means a role-based security group work on organization level, and a user-based security group works on a tenant level. Do you understand what is the meaning of organization level and tenant level? Any idea? Yes, no? And I've just brought
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
So basically, organization level means whatever organizations you have been attached to. So every role is attached to a particular organization. So for example, I am hiring an accountant. Okay. So what is the primary role of an accountant? What will an accountant do in any organization? Any idea?
Yeah, all the accounting jobs on the day-to-day basis, creating invoices and doing the accounting transactions.
Yeah, basically they are going to look at the financial transactions, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Now, there is a specific organization which is only used for financial transactions. That is cost center. So if I am going to create a role for an accountant, I will have to make sure that I give access to a cost center. Okay. And that cost center could be anything, but cost center access should be there. What level of cost center I'm giving, that is a different story. That is where we have constrained and unconstrained. That is a different thing. But when you have a job role that has to be specified, that they are responsible for only looking into the finances of the organization, then they will not be getting access to company location, or any of this organization or a particular supervisory organization. Even if they will get the supervisory organization access, but only their supervisory where they are working, not anybody else's, right? So what has happened here? It means that a role which I have created, an accountant role, that is going to work on an organization level, which is called as cost center. Okay. So that's the reason we always say that role-based security group works on organization level. Now, what that organization level is, it is very important that if anybody asks you, you are able to define. Organization level means the organizations which are defined in Workday, like your predefined organizations, custom and supervisory, right? And these organizations play a very important role in assigning any permissions based on your role, the job role that you're going to perform. Okay. So these are very important concepts that we can never forget. Now, when we talk about role-based security group, guys, the first thing is to create a role. Unless you create a role, you will not be able to go ahead and create a role-based security group. Okay. So I'll tell you, let me show you in the tenant only now. So to create any role, maybe these permissions are not there with you, but you at least have an idea maintain assignable role. This is a task. Now, when you have such tasks like maintain assignable roles, so what do you see here is whatever roles are available in this tenant, you will get access to all the roles. I'm just waiting. See, there are 231 roles which has been created. And how exactly it has been created, you see a role name. So whatever role you have to create, you have to put it here and then see enabled for. So this is my organization where I am actually enabling it. Okay. So this analyst is enabled for only company and company hierarchy. Okay. They will not have access to cost center. They will not have access to supervisory organization or a custom organization or a location hierarchy or anything. Okay. And if you scroll it down, let's see this one, absence partner. Now, absence partner has a role that is enabled for supervisory. So whenever you have to create a role, you have to dedicate an organization. Now, whenever that organization has been dedicated, then based on that, you see this option says assigned by security groups. So by default, you have a security administrator created in Workday. Whoever has got the security administrator access, they are basically the super users of that particular tenant. And these kind of roles are either assigned by them or it is created by them. So it is mentioned here that assigned by security group. So which is that security group which can assign this kind of roles? So here, if you want to mention a security administrator, or if you have a custom role that has been created, or a custom security group that has been created, that is what you have to mention here. And then only a role will be created. Okay. Any questions on role creation, how a role is created? Yes.
I'm good.
Okay. I'm just waiting for it to load. All right, we'll use the other tab. So in this section, we'll try to understand how a security group is created. So the task for that is create security group. Okay, this is my task, create security group. And you see, there are multiple types of security that you will have here. But depending upon what are we trying to understand, we have to use that. And these are all used in different modules. But when you look into the HCM part, this is the most used security groups that you will have. Role-based, constrained, and role-based unconstrained. So these are two separate type of security groups. Now, when we say unconstrained, it means it has no limit. There has been no restrictions which has been put on this particular role. And when you use a role-based constraint, okay, let me show it to you. We will start with constraint first. So let's say I'm creating like HR executive and click on OK. Now here you see, this is my role name. This is my security group name. And then it says assignable role, and that is mandatory. If I don't assign a role, I cannot create this security group. So for any role-based security group that we have to create, we have to make sure that the role is created first so that you can assign those roles. Okay. So let's say I have a role created, WLE7. This is the role. Let's see. I don't have it. All right. Maybe someone has made some changes. Nope. I think the user is not what I am using here. Okay, it's not coming. So whatever roles I have, let's use something which is there in the system. See, all these roles that you saw, it is available here, right? So somewhere down the list, You see, WDM8 HR executive. So this is the role which I had created. Now, if I assign this role, then only this security group will be created. But this is just the creation of the security group. Now here you see, there is a restriction that you have to define. Access rights to the organization. So what kind of access rights you are trying to give? Is it applies to the current organization only? Current organization means it is about the hierarchy. As I stated, right, that the permissions actually, the security works from top to bottom, correct? Yeah. So when I say top to bottom, it indicates that we have to follow the hierarchy, and there you can restrict. So it says applies to current organization only. So let's say that I am restricting your access to a particular supervisory organization. So I'll just take this example. See, Sneha. So Sneha is a HR, right? So Sneha has been assigned to this particular supervisory organization. So if I'm saying that Sneha is assigned to this group, and if I choose this option, which says applies to current organization only. So if I am using this particular part, then Sneha, if Sneha has been assigned that HR executive group, Sneha will be limited to this particular supervisory organization only. Okay. So it depends where you have to give the access. Then it says applies to current organization and unassigned subordinates, which means that current organization which you have and unassigned subordinates. So any subordinate which is below this, but it has not been even assigned to this particular supervisory organization, they are, which means those supervisory organizations are not subordinate, then also Sneha will have access to those. That is the meaning of this particular constraint. And then it says applies to current organization and all subordinates. Subordinates. So here you see, you have HIJ and G. G is the manager for HIJ, and HIJ may have different people reporting to them. They are individual contributors. So when you have this scenario, so Sneha will have access to G and all the subordinates which are there for HIJ. And if HIJ has any subordinate, she will have access to them also. Now, previous one was, what was the previous one? Oh, just hold on, please. Let me restore. So the previous one was to unassigned subordinate, right? So when you have unassigned subordinate, so it could be anybody. But if you have all subordinates, then it will be only in that hierarchy. Okay. And it says applied to current organization and subordinates to level. So in this tab, if you see, if I talk about Naveen, Naveen is at the top level, and I say that Naveen has access to only till B. Okay. So I can say applies to current organization and subordinate to level 1. So in that case, what will happen? Naveen will have access to the top level and a level below that. That's it. Naveen will not be able to see any data beyond this. Right? So this is how the security is manipulated. Then you see this option. It says access rights to multiple job workers. So when you have some kind of HR related role, so it says the role has access to the positions they support. Okay. Because HR team is supporting some or the other organization. Right. And if you are saying that role has access to the position they support, so only those people who are there in that particular group, then only the HR is going to support. Or if they have access to all positions, then this HR would not be just HR executive. She would be somebody like HR director or somebody who has access to all the positions. Okay. And role has access to all the positions. So this is somebody who is always at the top level. So these are the places by which you can actually, what you can do is restrict it. And that's the reason it says constrained role-based security group. Okay. So you have to make sure that you are putting some constraint, you are putting some restrictions, and that's the reason you are using this kind of security group. If you don't want to use this, if you don't want to basically create any constraint, you don't want that, then for that purpose, role-based security group has been given, which is unconstrained. So when you have this, what will happen? Okay, it's already used. See, it is completely unconstrained. You don't have to give anything, right? There's nothing like mandatory part. Are you getting the point?
Yes, Ashish.
This is what the difference between both of them is when you talk about a role-based security group constrained and a role-based security group which is unconstrained. Now, how exactly it works on the data? Because we know that we have to assign the permissions. And when we have to assign the permissions, it is very, very important that you have to understand which is that area from where do we give the permission, correct? So this is just about the role-based security group as of now. We can use the user-based security group as well. There is no as such any restriction. But first of all, your security group has to be created. And based on that, you have to find out which functional area I have to basically look into. If I am not able to identify the functional area, guys, you will not be able to give the permissions. Even if you give the permissions, those may not be correct. So it is very important that you find out the correct functional area which you need. So how to find the correct functional area? We have a report for that. And this is a Workday delivered report, functional areas. And you see, there are 100 functional areas within Workday. Now, if you have to build a report, you will have to see what permissions and which domain are available in this particular functional area. You see, everything is here. It is your HCM, expense, finance, right? Procurement, planning, Workday, for everything you have, right? So I'll not go into that, but let me see what things are there in this section which I can use. Okay, so what is that area where you build most of the reports, guys? Is it HCM? Personal
Yes,
data?
HCM.
Okay. So when I actually filter it through HCM, there should be at least 35 to 37 specific functional area for HCM. See, 37. Now within 37, you should see that the fields that you actually use in your report, okay, they are not only a part of business object, but they are a part of specific functional area as well. Now, what are these functional area? You see academic, faculty, advanced compensation, right? So if you scroll it down, you will get all the functional areas: benchmarking, benefits, budgets, career development and planning, contact, core compensation, headcount plans, right? Now, all these jobs and positions. So if you look into this, jobs and positions, right? Just scroll it down, you see, you have directory information, all these information, step up, positions, all these informations are there. Now, what is this used for? So this is basically used for giving the permissions. How do we give the permission? That I'm going to show it to you. But first, you see, as per the functional area, it includes all the domain. And domain is basically a collection of fields which is going to come from different business objects. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look into now the domain security policy. Okay, so you see this option. It says domain security policy summary. If you look into this, it will ask you for the functional area. So I'll tell you. So whenever we have to give the permissions, okay. So before I give any permissions to anybody, I will have to make sure that I know for which functional area I am going to give the permission. So for example, domain security policy, you see this task, right? Domain security policy for functional area. So when I am trying to get into in this section, right? So whatever functional area I have, right? Let's say personal data. And I'll go ahead and click on OK. So all the security groups which has access or permissions, I will be able to see that. In fact, the permissions are minutely arranged in the sense that if you want to give the permissions to the complete fields, you can give it. If you want to give the permissions to an individual field, you can give it. So it all depends upon your requirement. And what are the two permissions that we have, guys, in the data security part?
Role-based and user-based.
That is security group. I'm saying the
Yeah.
permissions that we have. What are the permissions that we have under the data security? I said there are two permissions, which is under data security.
Yeah. View and edit.
View and edit. That is not edit, but it is
modify.
view and modify. Okay.
Modify.
So modify means you can edit, you can delete, you can upsert, you can do any operations. Okay. So whenever I have to give a permission, I have to come into this security policy and I'll have to find the exact functional area. And here I will give the permission. So you see the reports and tasks permissions are given in this section, whether you are able to view it or you are able to modify it. If you have both the permissions, then you will be able to create as well. But if you don't have it, you may just be able to view the data. And if you don't have any permissions, you will not be able to view it also. You'll not be able to modify it. In fact, when the report would run in front of you, it will just give you a blank value, nothing. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yes.
No? Because this is a very important concept that, you know, you cannot afford to forget it.
Yeah.
Because this is something. Yeah.
Ashish, I have one question. When we create dashboards or when we create a Prism data set, it's slightly different. When we create a Prism data sets, we have to give, we have to give those data sets permissions for certain domains. The domains which you are explaining, are these interlinked with dashboards security permissions, or that's a completely different architecture?
No. Every domain is here only. You
Here
have
only.
to
Okay.
just find out the exact functional area where you are giving the permission. Because the permissions are given on the functional area. So what we are seeing here is a functional area. And what is that functional area? This is personal data. So where are we giving the permissions? We are giving the permissions on personal data functional area. And that is where you have the sections.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So you see this folder, which you have personal data, and you saw that personal data has a lot of fields, right? If not, then I'll show it to you. So let's talk about a functional area, which is personal data. Put a filter. Now you see, I have so many fields here, right? You see that? Name
Yes.
and marital status. So when I go into this folder, right, I can give the permissions to the complete folder also, and I can actually give the permissions to each and every field which is present here. Okay, so that makes it very important that where do you want to give the permission. So let's say I'm giving the permission to this folder. If I have to give the permission to the folder, I will actually have to go down, scroll it down, and click on edit permissions. Okay. And when you scroll it down, you see you have options. These are security groups. These security groups have both view and modify permission. Let's say I only want to give the permission to my security group. Let's say I created, right, something. I don't remember that now. What was the security group? WLM8. Let me see if that comes up. Yeah.
Yep.
See, this is a HR executive security group. Now, I am giving the personal data section, right? So I cannot go ahead and ask them to modify. They can view it. Even HR should not be responsible to change personal data for anybody, right? It has to be changed either by an employee themselves, or they will have to raise a ticket for doing it. If they do it, my HR is going to do it, then that's not right. Another thing I wanted to specify. So if you don't click here, you just click on modify. See, view will automatically come. It's logical, right? If you're not able to see the data, how will you modify? And if you have modify permission, that means you will automatically be able to see the data also. Correct? Yes, no?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So whenever you are giving any permissions, guys, you have to make sure that these changes are documented somewhere. Because, if we make simple mistake also here, that can lead to a huge escalation. Okay. So wherever you are making any changes, please ensure that you are marking it or you are putting it somewhere so that you are able to, use it the way you want to. The next part is, this is about your reports and task permissions. Okay. Now there is one more thing, which is, an important part, which is integration permissions. I hope you know what is integrations. Have you worked on it or have you used any of them in your current project?
So we don't do integrations.
No, that's fine, but you have idea, right? What is integrations?
Yep. Yes.
So there also you have two methods or two permissions, get and put. Okay. So from here only you can give those permissions also. Okay. So if you are giving put permission, get will automatically come. If you are giving get permission, then put will not come. Now, what is the difference between get and put? Get basically means you are extracting the data from Workday. Put means you are inserting the data into Workday system. Okay. So now I'll just remove this modify permission and view will already be there. Now you see this alert, right? So what this alert says activate your security policy changes using the active pending security policy task. Now this is an important activity. Okay, I'll click on OK. This alert will go. That will not be a problem. It is not something which will restrict me. But the fact is, this security changes will not take effect unless I go ahead and activate it, which means there is a double check on it because you are making some changes in the security and it is very sensitive in nature, right? So what Workday has done it that, okay, fine, you are adding a change in the security. You are clicking OK, you are clicking on done, everything is set. But these changes will not be active unless you are activating the security policy changes. So how do we do that? There's a specific task for that. So it says activate pending security. Activate, see this, pending security policy changes. Then it says comment approved by PM. Okay, project manager. I'll click on OK. Now you see, it will give you the fields. What are the fields that you have, right? And it will ask you to confirm. Oh, it got refreshed. All right, so I'll confirm this and I'll go ahead and click on OK. Okay, so once it is approved or once it is done, then what is going to happen? Your security group where you have given the permissions, it is now active. So if you scroll it down, this was a security group, right? Now you see it's active view. So it's already available to you. But what permissions I have given? View permissions. So now if they are able to run the report, okay, any person in this security group and you have shared a report with them, and if they have view permission, then the report will run for them. Then they will not have any challenges. Okay. So to run a report and see the exact data, you need to have at least view permission. That is the minimum thing that you would need to run the right report and get the correct data in front of you. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Guys, if you have confusion, you can ask me right now. There is no problem at all. Don't shy away from asking the questions. Okay, I don't hear any questions. All right, so now we have understood how the permissions are given and how the security group plays a very important role, right? Is there anybody who has any confusion, guys? Okay. So I don't have any questions, which means I will think that it is clear to you. Now, there are a few things that we all have to remember, okay? So I'm not sharing the steps that how do you create a role, how do you go ahead and create a security group, all those things I'm not going to do basically, because that is something which your role does not allow you to do it. Okay. So I will not get or spend time on that, but I'll have to explain you a few things here. So I already explained that we cannot assign any employee directly to a security group, right? So how do we do that, guys?
We'll assign him to the, yeah.
No, what I'm asking is, we all know that permissions is not given to a user directly, but then how exactly it is done?
We'll assign him a role-based security.
Okay. So we will assign a role to an employee. Okay. Understand the relationship. First, a role is created. Then a role-based security group is created and you assign that role to that security group. Okay. And we have seen that we assign the permissions to a security group. Whether you want to assign view or modify or integration permissions does not matter, but it has to be on a security group. Now, once the security group has the permission, the role has automatically got the permission because it is a part of it. So any employee who joins, we will go ahead and assign the role to that employee. Okay. So I will go ahead and assign the role to that employee. Once I assign that role to that employee, the person automatically belongs to that security group where that role has been assigned. Okay. Then based on that, all the permissions which the security group has is now possessed by the person who is there. Does it make sense? You have understood the relationship?
Yes.
Okay. So guys, this was about the data security. Because we are not doing configuration here, I just wanted to make sure that things are clear to you on the conceptual part. So another thing, it is not your designation, guys, which gives you permissions in Workday or any system. It is what permissions you are supposed to get as per your designation. And if that has not been assigned on the security group, then you will not be able to perform your day-to-day activities. So it is very important that whoever is assigning the permission, they have to assign it as per the requirement and not as per the designation. Okay. So that also is very important. So this was about data security. Any questions if you have? We completed the data security part. Now what is left in the security is your action security. User-based security group also has the same kind of way by which you give the permission. But again, as I stated, that works on a tenant level, which means whenever you are assigning a permission to that security group, it will work on a tenant level. So for example, if I have given the access of supervisory, so it is all the supervisory of the in the organization, not just one. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Then now is the time to understand the action security. So let's talk about action security. So action security is about the activities which you perform. Now, what kind of activities you would perform in Workday, guys? What do you think? What kind of activities you generally would perform in any Workday system?
Ashish, one thing. Before we start with action security, I wanted to understand, is this required for people who generate report? Because as I mentioned, we are the team who generate reports and dashboards. So is action security required for us?
Yes, because you are generating.
Yeah.
You are, doing an activity, right?
Correct. Correct.
So it is something it is required for you.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
But you understood that domain security, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Domain security is the thing which we required on our day-to-day basis, because as I mentioned, we get requirements to give access, give permissions to report, and on the back end we have to understand what role the person is having and what permission needs to be given. So we interact with our team who takes care of the entire security domain, and but we have to basically give them the requirement, what security needs to be given, or we have to understand what requester is asking for. So for that purpose, what I understood is domain security is like a part of our day-to-day activity. And that was my question, that do we really need action security? But as you mentioned that yes, it is a task and it is an activity which we perform, and we need to understand that as well.
Has she dropped?
I'm there.
And I could not hear you.
Okay. All right. So I was saying that domain security, security policy is our day-to-day activity, and uh, that is the task which we use in our day-to-day processes. But action security, as you mentioned, that we perform that action in system. So would like to understand that policy.
Yeah, we will go into that.
Yep.
See, that's the reason I just wanted to know, first of all, what activities do you perform on a day-to-day basis? Generation of report is just one part, but is there anything else that you do?
We do generating reports, like develop the reports in Workday, give the permissions, and develop the dashboards. These three activities we have in Workday currently.
So
currently, I mean
got
to
it,
say.
got it.
Yep. And we also generate alerts on Workday for the teams.
Maybe the notifications that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, notifications. Rajdeep, apart from this, any action we perform on Workday? I think this is it.
No, that is all.
That is all. Okay. Currently, we have these 4 activities since the time we have gone live. Yeah.
See, security, if you would have gone through the complete security, just we have understood the domain security right now, but security is something which is common across the module. It is in data. That data security is always going to be common, whether it is HCM, whether it is finance or Workday student, does not matter, whether it is Prism. So everywhere the concept will remain same. That will not change. Even for action security, the concept will remain same. So
got it. Yep.
When we talk about action security, action basically means that there is a predefined step which is already there in the system. Okay, so when we talk about predefined steps, so it is more like a workflow, correct? So when you go into this option, and when you have to create a report, what task you type?
Create a report, create a custom report.
Create custom report, right?
Yeah.
Now let's say if I'm not allowed to do that activity, will I be able to get that option?
No.
Right? So that's the reason I said that any activity that you do in Workday, it is governed by a business process. Okay. So whether you have been given the access to create a report, which means somewhere or the other, your report would be a part of that. Sorry, your action would be a part of that security group, which has got the permission to create a report.
Got it. So you mean to say like we have access to report writer. So report writer itself is a business process and it is governed by a security.
Yes. And that security governance methodology is called as business process security policy.
Got it. Yeah.
Like the way we have domain security policy, we have business process security policy as well.
Okay.
So Workday has basically more than 500 business processes which is there inside Workday. And when we have to define the security of Workday, we have to ensure that the right security is given to the right security group again. Because if we make a mistake there, then the users will not be able to make anything, whatever their day-to-day activity is. Suppose I join an organization, right, and I have to submit my timesheet to mark my attendance. So if I'm not able to perform that activity, then this business process is basically access has not been given to me, so I am not able to perform that activity. So similarly, when you have to create or build reports, so those business processes, you should know that, okay, what are those business processes which actually is given to me to perform my day-to-day activities. Correct. So in fact, report groups, report writer, all these are all part of your report security. Report security is very simple. Whether, when you go into a reports, you have an option to share the reports with an individual user, to share with a group of people, right? Where you have the security groups coming up there, and then you give it to a specific person also in that security group, right? I think you have done that.
Yes, we have.
Right. Now, I'm talking beyond that. I'm talking about the actual business processes, which is actually helping you to prepare those reports. Okay. So we'll try to get into the system to understand that also. And then how do we give the permissions? There we will see it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So the task is business process definition. Okay. So here you see, this is also a Workday delivered report. This gives me all the business processes which is there in this particular tenant. As of date, 27/7 is what is the date that is there in the tenant, and you have all the modules. So if I just click on it and go into report, you see I've got expense report, all this reporting, and this is the main reporting business process that I have. Okay, so you got all these tasks. That is a definition. From where you have to get it is let me search it. Probably I'll get it. You see any place where you have the reporting, right? Whenever you see these options, reporting, right? So that itself is your report process. And when you have the report, let me figure it out in this way. Otherwise it will be difficult to search in this 500 reports, right? So whenever we talk about any report, there is an option which is given by Workday, which is basically called as default definition. And that default definition has some steps in that, right? So you see all these steps are mentioned here. And any step which I want to change in this, I can customize it. So this is for finance. So anything from the HCM side also, if you are putting some report, right, you can do that. And then you have these restrictions, right? So you see, these are the security groups who can initiate this report and who can change this, right? And if I have to change the security, I'll go ahead and click on actions first of all. Okay. And then I have this policy. You see business process policy. So wherever I have the policy and I want to make the changes, I'll have to edit it. Basically, you may not do it in your place, to be very honest. You may not do it because it will be your security administrator who has got the access to it. They will give you the permissions. But maybe, it is good for you to learn it. That's the reason I'm showing all this to you. So whenever I have to give any permissions, there are certain questions which will be there. You see this, who can start the business process? So for example, if I have generate report as a business process, okay. So there also I will have this process question, which is who can start the business process? Okay. And then you have to put the security group here, whichever security group you have. Let's say, so this is my security group, right? And I want to give the permission So I will just add that security group. Once I add, again the same thing will happen, that activate your security policy changes. And unless I activate it, I will not be able to go ahead and use it unless it is active. And not this just one question. There are multiple things that comes inside it. Okay, you want to do it through web service, which is your integration. Then also you have to add the security group. Otherwise that person will not be able to perform the activity. Then you have to perform any other part. Let's say I want to have a specific role. For example, I want to only perform the action steps. Action steps basically means, when you talk about action means calling any other business process. So within a business process, if I have another business process which I am calling, so who can perform those steps, that also I will have to mention. Now how exactly it happens is, so let's say I am generating a report. Okay, and once the report is generated, then it goes for a review. If you want that your report that you have generated, you want to make sure that it is reviewed by somebody. So that business process will have a step called review, and within that review there may be an action, and that action would be maybe your senior or somebody who is going to review that. Not every organization follows it, but yes, in case it has been followed by any organization, then they will have to set up that security group here. That who is that security group, which is that security group, who are able to perform the action steps. Only those security group you are going to see here. Otherwise it will, that person who is a part of that security group, who is supposed to do it, they will not be able to perform those security reviews or functions. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, Ashish.
Great. So this is the most important part of your action security. And again, when I say action security, and if you have made the changes, so you will have to make sure that the pending security policies has to be activated. When you go into that, when you click on OK here, and when you run this task again, okay, activate pending security policy changes. No, this is something else. Then you would see, now you will have business process security policy here, not the domain security policy. You see this business process security policies, and this is where you have expense report event, and you have changed it, and you have to confirm, and you have to click on OK. So this is the major difference when you actually use something for action, and what exactly are you doing. Okay, that makes a very important changes.
Got it.
Does it make
Yep.
sense? So guys, this is all about the security, which is what I wanted to discuss. And most of the things are not exactly what you are supposed to do in your environment. So I cannot go ahead and do a deep dive more, because you're not actually into that section, or as a security administrator, that you will be performing those activities.
Ashish, I have one question. When you showed us the business process,
Yeah.
yeah, any business process you can take it, like,
Yeah, any
could
business
be,
process, tell me. Let's take higher. I'm just
yep, higher.
taking higher business process.
Um, yeah,
Mhm. So you want me to go into a
Yeah, you can
specific?
click on the, you can take any business process. You can just click on hire business process. That should be fine.
Yeah, I will actually try. I'm trying to look for default definition because this is all custom, but
Yep,
that's fine.
these are all
Let's
custom.
let's let's
We
let's
can take an interview business process as well. I think that is default.
let me look into it. Maybe.
Yeah. So
Oh,
over
there is only
here,
initiation. Yeah, tell me. I
yeah.
mean, if you have questions, yeah.
So I have questions here. My questions would be coming from all reporting perspective. So
That's fine.
it happens that since you were showing us this process and we have the order, it happens that here there are multiple orders, and uh, in report, when we are generating the report, we have to use any particular order in the report. Suppose if that's how I was saying, like interview business process. So there is any particular screening business process. We have to
Yeah,
create a report only for the screening process. Then
yeah,
we have to go into business process steps and we have to understand what are the steps. So is there a way where we can understand these orders?
yeah. There is no actual order that will come in front of you unless you go into
Hmm.
that. So let's say screen, right? So screen is a
Yeah,
business process that is part
it's a
of your
business process.
recruitment. It is in
Yep.
recruitment, right? See this
Yeah.
one default process. So there are only 3 steps there. That is what I remember
Hmm.
in the default
Okay.
definition.
Yeah.
See, initiate
Yep.
and then you see action. Action
Hmm.
means calling any other business process. So the screen candidate is a business process.
Correct. Hmm.
Yeah. So when you
Yeah.
go into this screen candidate business process,
Hmm.
you will have further steps in that. And if you want to look
Okay.
into it, then you will have to get into that business process. There is no other alternative.
Hmm. So it happens. Why I wanted to understand the orders, because it happens with us that we have requirement only for particular steps. You know,
Mhm,
for how many days the, for example, if I take a job requisition, for how many
mhm,
days the job requisition was frozen, for how
mhm,
many days the screening took place, and
mhm,
for certain such kind of requirements and for such kind of reports when we have to generate,
mhm,
it becomes very necessary for us that what is the business process, what were the dates which were taking place in that entire transaction, and
mhm.
what needs to be captured in the report itself.
Yeah. So see, you there you need to concentrate more on the fields,
Yeah,
right?
even if we take the fields, but fields are coming from business processes, right?
No,
And
it will come from your business object, not from process. The data
but
will
a
come
business
from the business.
process, it happens that business process itself is a business object. Even that is one of the thing,
Agreed,
right?
agreed. Yeah. Business process itself is a business object. Yes, that is
It's a build.
true.
Hmm.
Yeah. But if you're trying to get a simplified version or you want to
Hmm.
see something in the order, that is not possible,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. That's the day-to-day challenge for us to get any certain one business one order in the report to bring that data on the reporting front.
Hmm. I can understand, but that is
Yeah.
something which is not there.
Okay.